Deaths on our roads have remained largely unchanged since 2010, but the solution is out there. Sustainable transport charity Sustrans recently released a report on the National Cycle Network, a 14,000-mile network of cycle infrastructure. I've come to a regional meeting for the South of England branch to speak to their Head of Network Development for the South of England, Simon Pratt.
Well, we've just published our national review, which has the headline figures that we have something like 16,000 miles across the UK. Of about 1/3 is traffic free and 2/3 on quiet roads, and it's roughly 50-50, about half is good or very good and half is poor or very poor. The classifications don't really take into account the quality of the surface, in the sense that because we value traffic free much more highly than on road for obvious reasons. This example here in the middle of Reading, it's beautiful green space in quite a densely populated urban area. But the surface here is not really up to scratch, and speed is absolutely critical, particularly in urban areas. So we know you're more likely to be killed if you're hit by a car at 30 miles an hour than 20 miles an hour. So, we must adopt a default speed limit of 20 miles an hour in all urban areas.
At the official launch of the report at Reading University, I questioned Shadow Transport Minister Matt Roda on what his party would do to address the concerns brought up by Simon.
And also in trying to remove risk from cyclists and walkers, and also the perception of risk as well. Because the two things are connected, and they obviously dissuade people from cycling and walking. So yeah, we're very, very interested in that. Target zero, we think, is the way to go, to try and design out accidents. In fact, we shouldn't refer to them as accidents. Collisions, crashes, they're not actually accidents, they're preventable tragedies that should be stopped by government policy. The number of road accidents road crashes involving vulnerable users within the overall number of deaths and serious injuries in the UK is higher than in some other countries. So in other words, we're doing better at reducing casualties in accidents involving vehicles than we are in accidents involving vulnerable road users. Now, isn't that a telling thing, and isn't it a problem that needs to be addressed urgently?
But how do we achieve those goals? Many people point towards the Netherlands and their record for cycle safety. I've contacted the Senior Policy Advisor for Traffic and Transport at the Municipality of The Hague, Frans Botma, to find out how they did it.
For cyclists, it's quite important to have that cycling infrastructure. Not designing for the cars, but designing for the people. Making it easy to choose for public transport, making it easy to walk, making it easy to cycle. What makes it safe to cycle in Holland is that cyclists are out in quite great numbers. I think in The Hague it dropped it peaked at about 70 deaths a year in the 70s to about, on average, something like 8 people deaths a year now.
Impressive statistics. But what is being advocated for back in the UK? And why is the UK so behind its neighbours? I've come to the National Cycling Centre in Manchester to meet with Nick Chamberlain, Head of Policy at British Cycling, who concurred that infrastructure is key to reducing casualties.
In towns and cities and other urban places, there is a desperate need for segregated infrastructure, like we see in the Netherlands, like we see in Scandinavia, to separate cars and bikes. That is absolutely imperative, and I think all of the evidence and all of the research points towards that as being the only rational solution to more livable cities, more livable places. I think, again, rather than looking at a particular immediate blueprint, the things that we can follow that have happened in the Netherlands and in Scandinavia, in particular Denmark, is the political will. So it's the political will for change. So certainly we're seeing great strides in bits of London, and I would generally say bits of London as opposed to the whole capital, but some of the best of what is happening there is really exciting and very encouraging for the future, from the big headline-grabbing infrastructure pieces like the superhighways, maybe not the best appropriate terminology for them, a little bit elitist and off-putting, but certainly the mini Holland schemes that we're seeing, in particular in boroughs like Waltham Forest, everything that is coming out of that is that is really, really interesting and exciting stuff that should and could be rolled out in many other communities across the country. There is the money to do these things, but it will take very tough, absolutely tough decisions about how transport spend is reallocated to different purposes. We saw at the last budget a few weeks ago that there was a £28 billion settlement for the major roads network, i.e. motorways and the major arterial A roads. And again, we understand why a government, any government of whatever colour, might feel under pressure to come out with those sorts of headline features, which has dominated transport policy and transport spend for the last 4 decades. But that needs to change. So the evidence is pretty clear now that if you build high quality world-class infrastructure, and the Dutch and the Danes are certainly leading in demonstrating what that looks like, you will get a dramatic reduction in casualties. And there are some simple measures that we would be very keen on the government considering.
The Department for Transport declined requests for interviews or comment, but offered this statement in response to Simon, Franz, Nick, Matt, and the number of deaths on our roads. Our priority is to keep road users safe, and a number of initiatives, including a recent £100 million boost through the Safer Roads Fund, ensure Britain have some of the safest roads in the world. It seems, for now at least, calls for radical change will fall on deaf ears.